Hey guys, welcome back. It's Steph. Today I'm going to do a really quick February wrap up for you. I had six books on, they're sitting over here, that's why I'm looking down there. I had 6 books on my February TBR and I actually finished them with 5 days left of the month, so I kind of was just scrambling at the end of the month to find something else to read. I did end up finding another book and I didn't finish it, so I'm still reading it now because I was out of town, so I was a little preoccupied. But anyway, so I'm just going to dive right in with my February wrap-up. And so the first book that I read in February was Illuminae by Kaufman and Kristoff. This one I was a little bit hesitant to read because it is a science fiction novel, and science fiction is not my genre of choice. It was a lot more difficult for me to read than I anticipated, actually. I thought that it was going to be super easy based on like the format and the fact that some of these pages only have like 1 or 2 words on each page. Even though the book is, like 600 pages, 700 pages long, the way that it's laid out is just not in the standard book format. So I did have a hard time reading it. Like the first 500 pages I wanted to like gouge my eyeballs out. But then it kind of turned itself around. There became a little bit more action. There was a kind of tomfoolery, trickery in there that I thought was, I kind of saw it coming, but I saw it coming right before they told us that it happened, so I guess that's okay. And then there's kind of like a little twist at the end where they introduced another character who I think is going to be a big player in the next series, in the next novel. I probably would give this like 3 stars, which is enough for me to continue reading the series. So the next book is in my March TBR. I would recommend it. If you really like science fiction, I would say read it. The next one is Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. I thought that this was going to be totally different than what it was. I know that Carrie Fisher is really funny, and I know that she's the daughter of Debbie Reynolds and, what is it, Todd Fisher? I think it's Todd Fisher. And, so she's like this Hollywood icon, and she struggled with addiction and bipolar disorder. But this book is nothing like I thought it was going to be. There is a really, really funny story in here about George W. Bush, which I really appreciated because I thought it was hilarious. But other than that, like, it's 150 pages. The font's really huge. I think it took me like 2 hours to read it. I wouldn't really necessarily recommend this book. I could see it on a shelf at like an inpatient rehab facility, but I wouldn't pick it up for if you're hoping to get an insight into addiction. This is not going to give it to you. Basically, it's just if you're really interested in movie stars and singers from the 60s, this is a good book for you. If not, like, put it down. This next one I'm super excited to talk about. I just absolutely loved it. It just makes my heart happy. And that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I absolutely adore this book. I would probably have reread it immediately if I didn't have other books to read. I just absolutely loved it. I thought she did such a good job. I mean, she just completely took everything that she had built up for me in A Court of Thorns and Roses. She completely tore down and then built back even better. I mean, this is just such a good book. I have to have a moment, so there's gonna be spoilers, so you might want to mute me, and I'm gonna flip the book around, and when I turn it back so that the cover is facing front, you can unmute me. Can we just talk about Feyre and Rhys, please? I mean, come on. That scene in the night court, really? That just... Whew, Sarah, girl, you're good. I just love how, like, I was so involved in Feyre and Tamlin, and then she just completely shattered my universe with this whole, like, Tamlin trying to keep her captive, and then she runs off to the last place you would expect her to go, and she's so much happier, and you can just see, like, Maas just put all these little Easter eggs in, like, all the novels, so it kind of makes me want to go back and read Court of Thorns and Roses again, because I feel like they're kind of portrayed in there, and like you're starting to see little signs. So I just really loved it. You guys, you have to go read this book. I give it 5 stars. If I could give it more than 5 stars, I would. Like I said, I want to be her best friend. She is the queen of She's the princess. I know I said it. She's the princess of world building and character development, and I just am totally obsessed, and I cannot wait until May when A Court of Wings and Ruin comes out. I wish that this series could go on for eternity. Oh, what to say? The next book I read was King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. Now, how do you go from reading A Court of Mist and Fury to King's Cage without being extremely disappointed? I mean, maybe I did it to myself, but this book is crap. It's crap. I hated it. I did a video on it. The link is in the description box below. I really hated this book. I feel like Aveyard is not... let me give her some respect. First of all, she's 26 years old, and she is a published author of a series of novels that are wildly popular. Good job. But the writing is not very good, and I feel like she borrows, and that's using a term... I'm using the word borrows instead of plagiarizes, just because I'm being polite. But I feel like she really borrows from a lot of other authors who write much better novels. And I actually follow her on Instagram and Twitter. And she's recently been reading and watching Lord of the Rings. And so I'm really interested to see how much of that is reflected in book 4. That's all I have to say. I would not recommend this series to anyone. Red Queen was alright. But if you could go from Red Queen and then skip Glass Sword and definitely King's Cage, maybe leapfrog into the 4th book, I just hope something happens. Otherwise, I freaking hate this book. Now, this next book I actually really enjoyed. It was a departure for me, but I think it's just an awesome book, and I strongly recommend it to anyone, and that is The Sellout by Paul Beatty. This book is so amazing. His prose and his style of writing just like slams you in the face. It's kind of like, it's just like gunshots, like boom, 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 like one right after another. Just the way that he speaks and the language of this book, I just really enjoy it. And speaking from personal experience, like this book obviously takes place, and it's a satire on racism in America, and basically the fact that people are saying that racism is dead. And now, speaking as a white woman who's never really had to deal with a lot of racism, because, you know, I live in a community where most of the people around me are white. I went to school with mostly white kids. I mean, that's just the way that the world is. It made me really check my privilege. You know, some of the things that are written about in here, while yes, they come from a really outlandish point of view, they really made me stop and think about things that I don't usually think about, because that whole thing about like checking your privilege is just because it has never happened to you does not mean that it's not real. So this book is just really excellent. I mean, his language in this novel is just incredible. One of the things that he writes, I mean, I have little tabs everywhere. One of the things that he wrote says, "Although they're not hard to grow, I've been selling them for years. Folks will go crazy at the sight of a square watermelon. And like that black president, you'd think that after 2 terms of looking at a dude in a suit deliver the State of the Union address, you'd get used to square watermelons, but somehow you never do." I mean, it's just really brilliant, because it just really makes you think. And I just really think it's just such a good book. And like, there's a character in this book who rewrites some of the American classics from an African American perspective, and he retitles them. So this is him talking about how he rewrote Huckleberry Finn, and he says, "I also improved Jim's diction, rejiggering the plotline a bit, and retitled the book, The Purgative Free Adventures and Intellectual and Spiritual Journeys of African American Jim and his young protege, white brother Huckleberry Finn, as they go in search of the lost black family unit." Like, it's just crazy. I just really enjoyed this book. I strongly recommend it. Now, I will say that the author does use a lot of language that maybe people might find offensive or prefer not to read. He does use the N-word quite a lot, but I feel like it's for the benefit of the story and not just to be sensational. So if you aren't okay with stuff like that, maybe it's not the book for you. But I really think that it's really an important novel. And I can see why he won so many awards for it. 5 out of 5. Oh man. The next book, I would say that I read it, but I really didn't read it. I kind of cheated when I said I read all these books. The next book was Every Day by David Levithan. I didn't finish this book. I read, where's my dog here? 49 pages. And I couldn't continue. Now, the premise of the book is really great. Basically, this teenage boy, well, we assume it's a teenager and we assume he's a boy. This teenage person named A basically jumps from body to body every day. So it's kind of like that old show from the late 80s, early 90s, Quantum Leap. And he jumps from body to body every day until one day he lands in this other boy's body and he falls in love with the boy's girlfriend. And then he jumps to another body. And so every day he's jumping and jumping. It's basically like this, we're supposed to feel like there's like some social commentary in here based on who he's jumping into. So there's like a family of immigrants, there's a kid who gets in trouble for smoking pot, there's, you know, stuff like that. And I feel like it's supposed to be making like I feel like he's trying to make a point, the author, but it doesn't come across very well for me. He falls in love with this girl like randomly, just this, like the book opens and he pops up into this boy's life and he falls in love with his girlfriend. So I just really didn't like it. It was just really hard for me. I wish that I could like it. Because I only read 49 pages, this book is like brand new. So if there's anybody out there who wants to do a book swap, I'll give you this book and you can give me one of yours. Because this one is not for me. So anyway, that's it. That's it for my February wrap up. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I was kind of a downer. Some of these books are really just crap. And some of them I was really looking forward to and it ended up still just being okay. So if you have any recommendations for me for the month of April, I would be more than willing to hear them out. And as always, happy reading, guys. Bye-bye.